welcome to Inside Tack with Bell Staff. I'm the Racing Rules Advisor for INEOS Team UK, Matt Cornwell. This is where we bring you the live reaction from the sailors to today's action. Before we go too far, I'm sure a lot of you at home know the situation. There was a really bad capsize for American Magic Team, our neighbours here, just over the fence. It's still ongoing. They're struggling with the boat. We don't know how bad it is, but our team are out there helping them. The boat had a lot of water ingress and there was a risk of sinking. I think they've managed to steady the ship a little bit, but obviously really devastating day for those guys, and as competitors and professionals we never want to see that happen to anyone else, and we feel really bad for those guys. And we wish them the best moving forward from here, and we'll try and help them however we can. But we'll turn from that a little bit because, you know, obviously this is the end of the first part of the racing, the first weekend. We've had 3 days, and it has been a really successful 3 days for us as a team. For INEOS Team UK, we've had wins in 4 out of 4 races, and I've got a great lineup with me here today. We've got Giles Scott, our Tactician, Olympic gold medalist, Bleddyn Mon, our Mainsail Trimmer, two Mainsails Trimmer, and of course we've got Thomas Batch, who probably has the most impressive CV here, although those of you sailing fans at home probably don't recognise the guy, but he's from Mercedes Formula One. You've been part of 11 Formula One wins, is that correct?
11 in a row, yeah.
11 in a row, okay. So Thomas has definitely got the best CV out of a lot of us, and thank you for joining us here today. Firstly, Giles, I mean, talk us through the day. It was a chaotic day, wasn't it? We started one race, the conditions were something we haven't seen before. How did it all feel?
Yeah, it was chaotic, it was frantic, it was yeah, it was one of those really stressful days that, you know, there was no respite at all. If we weren't having issues during the racing, we were having issues in 25 knot winds, trying to do battery changes, sail changes. Yeah, it was just a non-stop day, and you know, we went out there thinking that we were going to do one race, and as you say, the first one got cancelled, and we had to resail it. So yeah. Big old day. Yeah,
that's very interesting. That's the sort of part of the whole structure of the day that the people at home don't see. There's a lot goes on before you step onto the race course and enter into that pre-start box, isn't there?
Yeah, there is, and I think today what made things particularly challenging was that we were out racing on course A, which is a pretty open course. We had some really rough sea state, and actually I just watched the racing back, and I kind of thought that the video coverage didn't do the sea state that much justice. It was really tricky to manage, and as soon as that sea state pops up, even doing simple things like getting a chase boat alongside the yacht are a challenge. So yeah, obviously the racing was very challenging, but also getting it to the races was too.
Lifting heavy sails onto the boat, 35 kilo batteries which gets changed, don't they?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
How hard was it to read the shifts out there today as well? I mean, it looked pretty tough.
Yeah, it was really tough. We had this really weird weather setup where we had a really solid northeasterly, and on the forecast there's like a convergence zone with a pretty strong northwesterly as well. So we were kind of popping in between those two breezes, and we had rain sails coming through, which brought the breeze up to 25 knots, which is why they cancelled that first race. Yeah. So yeah, just a very difficult day to manage on all fronts.
And talking of difficulty, Bleds, you're in control of the engine of the boat, the mainsail, and it needs constant adjustment when the conditions are changing. And so how hard was that for you today? Was that a lot harder than a normal day out there?
Yeah, I mean, kind of as Giles alluded to, the sea state out there was pretty bad for these kind of racing boats. They're very well suited for flat water, and the breeze, to be honest, wouldn't have been an issue in flat water. But in that kind of chop and that kind of swell that we had from the northeast, it made it really hard, and it's a constant battle of basically trying to keep the boat flying just above the surface without touching too many waves.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of kind of re-accelerating out of manoeuvres. All the manoeuvres are a little bit slower. So yeah, a lot of the time is spent rebuilding and re-accelerating around the racecourse.
Yeah. So you want the boat to be as close as the water as possible, but of course in the waves, and you don't want the waves touching the boat. Can you feel it when the boat touches the water?
Yeah, I mean, for sure today you could kind of feel when the bustle, kind of the under part of our boat was touching the water, and kind of the nature of the design of the boat that we have, it's not as forgiving as other teams, particularly the Italians, which made it kind of fairly full on to control. And on the other side of it is we're trying to keep the foil just in the water, and that's equally as hard for the pilots to manage.
Of course. Thomas, you were watching in mission control, is that right? So we have mission control here, which is basically sort of puts us onto the race course. We've got various cameras on the boat. We can hear the audio from the boat when they're not racing, and then of course we watch the racing. Is that where you were today?
Yeah, so we're in there kind of trying to help the guys on the water as much as possible. So the guys on the chase boats following the guys sailing, they're providing information directly to them in the pre-starts and warm-ups, and then where they're collating as much data as possible, looking through analysis and trying to prepare for when the guys get back to give them feedback instantly and give them feedback on what they've done, what we can do the next day, and how the boat's been performing.
Roughly how many streams of data are we talking about here? I mean, it's a lot, right?
So channels on the boat or raw sensors on the boat, you're probably talking in the hundreds, but then we take that and we make that into mass channels and additional kind of analysis, like computational versions of those channels that we then analyse and get into more detail. So yeah, I mean, you're talking in the thousands of plots that we can kind of analyse.
There's a lot of stuff to pick through.
Yeah, definitely.
And how does it all compare to Formula One? The feeling of being the team, the intensity, the dealing with the data like that.
Yes, it's really similar. Certainly in this campaign, the technology is kind of really close to what we have in F1. The level of data analysis, the kind of feedback with the guys in terms of what they can feel on the water is very similar to the driver. So we kind of close that loop of their feedback and analysing the boat performance as well.
Right.
So there's a lot of synergy there. I think it's really kind of closing up in terms of the technology and also the level of detail we're going into to try and understand what's going on with the boat.
Yeah, well, nice work. I know it's all been a huge help having here, especially with the issues we've had from the World Series and moving things forward. So definitely thank you for all that. We've got a few clips to look at, guys. We'll look at the abandon race first. Very interesting pre-start. There was a penalty.
Is this a fair?
Giles, tell us a little bit about this one.
Yeah, well, you can see that both boats are struggling to get foiling properly, and you get a little bit of a look at how bad the sea state was there. But yeah, I mean, for us today, we were really just trying to keep the boat on its foils, stay clean and look for a clean start. I think in that first one we made a little bit of an error and we picked up a boundary penalty.
Yeah.
Which was a mistake on our behalf. But in those conditions, it's very easy to miss the obvious things, unfortunately. So a little error that we'll have to iron out for next time.
Yeah, it seemed like it was pretty crazy. It was throwing everyone off their game. The other teams were struggling with things too, no question. But that was abandoned. Why is that? I mean, the director, the regatta director, Ian Murray, he can abandon races if he thinks they're not fair.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, he actually came over the radio before the race and said to both ourselves and PRADA that he was expecting a big shift and that it's likely that it could end up in an abandonment. Okay. Surprisingly enough, 2 laps later, there it was, and
he knew
it was abandoned.
He knew. Ian Murray knew. So let's move on to the second race. Bleddyn, you can talk us a bit through this one. We had the start; they were ahead, but we got into splitting. There was quite quickly. We were sailing different parts of the race course from it.
Yeah, I guess a big feature from you see here off the start line, we're straight into a split. And I think, to be honest, the Italians were sailing quite well upwind. They had some nice modes upwind in both the first abandoned race and the race was actually sailed in the end.
Yeah.
But we generally got into them on the downwinds, so we made the most of being able to split at the top of the course and made some nice gains on the downwind to overtake them.
Yeah, and there's we'll show the last clip here, and this was a pretty key moment of the race. this was where we got a great split from. Well, that's going around the bottom, isn't it? But once we get to the top,
yeah, we had a few kind of close kind of ducks and crosses with them, so it was a good battle. Then yeah, you see kind of the final top mark and being able to stay ahead of them.
Yeah, so there was a fairly late call there. We just saw it in that clip where you came in pretty much side by side, and the late call to tack and split.
Yeah, and I think we've got to give that call to Ben.
Okay.
He was steering down to leeward because we were
Very modest. It's good honesty, mate.
Well, it's good honesty. It's got to, credit where credit's due and all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were bow to bow with PRADA coming into that top gate, and they tacked underneath us and went for the left turn, and Ben made the late call to tack bear away, and fortunately we were able to execute that move really quite well, and I was really surprised that we came out of that move, which is very hard, and normally you lose a bit of distance on that, but we came out of the bear away around the gate pretty much even, and we were sailing to more pressure. And actually, it's the same move that the Americans were doing in slightly more wind that they struggled in.
Yeah, and the first time that we've actually come from behind to win a race, I mean, how did that feel, Bleds?
Yeah, I mean, it was a good battle. Obviously, we'd already had a battle with them in the first kind of abandoned race, but the Italians sailed really well, and it was to and fro, and as I said, we had the edge downwind, so. I think once we got ahead on that final downwind, we kind of knew that we were able to keep this in the bag.
To do it,
But it was good to have a strong battle against them.
Yeah, well done, gentlemen. You certainly made it nervy for us, didn't they, Thomas? It was great to watch it unfold, and but yeah, it sort of feels in these boats and these conditions, it's never over till the end, is it? And obviously, that was very much the case for the team next door. We've got a few questions from everyone at home. Thank you, everyone back at home, especially those in the UK. I hope everything's still okay back there with lockdown. I know it's tough times, but we certainly appreciate the support. We know it's not easy for you guys, and we're certainly doing this for you. Got 3 questions here. Jason David Crouch, what's the drill in a capsize? How do you check you have 11 safe and well? Giles, why don't you talk to us about that one?
Yeah, well, we have pretty strict procedures that we work to. Fortunately, touch wood, we've not had to play them out for real yet. But the first thing that we make sure we do is we make sure that everyone's accounted for. So we have a very strict numbering off procedure. Every time we dock out on our yacht, or every time we have a crew change, we number off. There's 11 crew on board, so everyone has a number. And you just give a INEOS 1 OK, and that continues all the way through till 11.
Right.
As soon as the crew are all accounted for, then the focus shifts to recovering the boat, and we plan on running a single tow line righting system where we bring a chase boat in, they throw us a line, we anchor it off, and they pull us upright.
And I guess again, it's very pertinent, obviously, with what happened today with the Americans, but. It's a tough one, isn't it? Because we have procedures, we've watched the other teams do it, and we've put that into our procedures. But of course, it's something that we can't practice. You'd never actually do one on purpose to then practice it. So it's quite difficult, isn't it? And obviously, we feel for these guys here, their first time at trying to recover the boat, and you want to do it as quickly as possible. But it's not easy when you haven't done one before, is it?
No, absolutely not. And as you say, it's something that you do you never want to practice, because it puts your most important asset, your yacht, at risk, which is why we invest so much time into making sure that we're at least we have confidence in our procedures.
Yeah. Nice. Well, I've got 2 questions from JD Crouch here. Firstly, and this is kind of straight back to you actually, Giles, are dinghy sailing tactics in these light, puffy conditions employed?
Yes.
That's Jason in Portsmouth. Yeah.
The amazing thing about these boats is that they may be massive, but they are incredibly maneuverable.
Yeah.
So you can, once you have a grip of them, you can throw them around like a dinghy, and the maneuver losses are, they're pretty small. You can do a tack and lose maybe, if you do a good one, 2 boat lengths, which is very comparable to sailing around in your Optimist or your Laser. So yeah, I think Dinghy Tactics are very much at play in this type of racing.
Yeah, that's very true. Another one from Jason Portsmouth. I heard Sir Ben say in the press conference yesterday that he felt 10% gains had been made since the pre-Christmas, so since the World Series. What was the expectation of the gains made in multiple areas? Does that correlate with what the simulators were showing to you? Well, I'll let both of you guys answer this. I mean, from what you were saying, certainly Bleddyn, you work with the Mainsail and all the aero side. There's a huge amount of work going on there, isn't there? We've got a new rig, new mainsails. You know, what were your thoughts on the gains? And then Thomas will put that to you with all the sort of data and things, changes that were going on.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, it's been a busy time for the rig and sales department between Christmas and the start of this weekend.
Yeah.
As you say, new mast, new boom, new sails. So basically everything has been new. And it's nice to see them actually behaving kind of as expected. I think we've seen some big gains there, particularly being able to mode the sails nicely for the conditions. Which has become, well, it was powerful today, it was powerful yesterday in the light.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's exciting the amount you can do in 3 weeks when you put your mind to it. So yeah, I mean, big gains, but also a lot more to do still in the coming weeks.
Yeah, great. And Thomas, what have you seen from your side on that?
Yeah, so there's obviously been a huge amount of work going on since the World Series. I think it was clear for everybody watching that it wasn't where we wanted to be performance-wise. So there's been a real focus in the design office and in the performance side, trying to understand the issues and then working tirelessly to address them. So that's design team, sailing crew feeding back, and then shore team kind of getting in and exercising and executing those plans. So it's been a real team effort. We've also had the guys back in Brackley from Mercedes kind of consulting and guiding us a little bit and making sure that we're making good decisions. And I think a lot of that's been reaffirming that we're doing the right thing. It's good to have that kind of sounding board when you're hard up against it and working through issues, and they've been really good at basically confirming that we're on the right track.
Right.
And that's been a nice thing to have kind of as a bit of a fallback. So yeah, massive effort from the team. Obviously this week's been really rewarding as well from that perspective, to kind of see that in action, see the guys go out there and make it happen. So yeah, really positive.
Would it be fair to say that having these sort of fundamental design issues and coming up with fast solutions, is that something that you deal with quite often in the Formula One world?
Yeah, so we work on a obviously race weekend basis, so we're constantly bringing updates to the car, constantly kind of evaluating our own performance, but also looking at competitors as well and seeing what they're doing differently. So we've had to do some kind of digging through our own performance here and understand the issues, but fortunately I think it was evident quite quickly from the World Series where we were short and what we needed to do, and we've kind of come up with a plan and executed that really well. So yeah, it's been a good team effort across the board, which is really good to see.
Yeah, and I cannot underestimate or undersell how hard this team has been working since that World Series. You guys should all be very proud of yourselves. It's been a fantastic team effort. I was amazed how everyone rallied and got together, and you know, from what was a very, very tough World Series. Thank you for the questions. Keep those coming. We love hearing from you guys. We really do like answering your questions. Let's have a look at racing going forwards from here. This is the end of the weekend. There's no racing till next Friday, but there you can see the program there. Basically, we finish off this round robin and move into the next one next weekend. Yeah, all to play for still. Plenty of racing to do still in the PRADA Cup. And yeah, I think that's it. Thank you very much, everyone at home, for tuning in. Thank you guys for joining me. I'm sure we'll see you guys again over the next few weeks. Yeah, thanks. That's it from Inside Tack.